And I'm here with Frank Villavicencio, EVP, Executive Vice President of Identropy. Hi Frank, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Angela?
Good. So Frank, you've been in this industry, identity and access management, for 15 years.
Yes.
So a decade and a half. Tell us and our viewers about some of the changes over that time that have taken place.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for having us. The interesting trail here is that in those 15 years I've been able to play a variety of roles, all in the area of identity management.
And you've been on the end user side.
Correct.
And on the vendor side.
Correct.
So
I've been a deployer, I've been a product manager, I've been running consulting practices as well. So that has given me a perspective on the evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's interesting is to see how the space started as an IT-centric problem, where the solution was just to simplify the task that the administrators have to perform, which is get people access to systems. And over time, how that evolved into a very business critical problem now. And so to the point that regulation like Sarbanes-Oxley requires organizations to demonstrate they're doing a good job at managing access, makes it top of line item for a lot of CIOs today.
And it's not just Sarbanes-Oxley, right?
No,
but
right.
Other regulations.
So it depends on the vertical of the industry, but government, healthcare has HIPAA, and most recently they have meaningful use. In energy, there's NERC and FERC, and there are variations of different verticals, different industries have some adaptations of the same. But the idea, in the end, as it relates to identity, is to make sure that you're giving the people the right access at the right time, and no more, only what they need.
So let's talk about some of the challenges getting to that goal. When you talk to customers, what are some of the main roadblocks that they're facing?
Sure. So this is, by design almost, a complex problem. The idea is you orchestrate different systems and applications and try to get a logical view of a person and what that person should do. So it's inherently complex. Nowadays, with all the combination of legacy systems, SaaS-based applications, in the cloud, and so forth, organizations are really struggling to have a good handle on the technology they need to deploy and operate to orchestrate all that together. And so there's complexity in figuring out which is the right solution, and there's a lot of confusion out there. And then from that, the next challenge for organizations is to figure out what to do first. So in some cases, it will make sense to go and simplify the end user's experience with single sign-on. But in other cases, it will be more productive for the organization to streamline the onboarding process and cut the time it takes to get someone in or someone out.
Mm-hmm.
So it varies. I think one is the challenges of figuring out the right technology, and another would be how to deploy what comes first.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any tips or best practices that you can give us from your experience?
Yeah, so there's a few things. In fact, we published something we call our, I would say, our 10 Commandments. If you're Catholic, you probably relate. But the idea here is that after those 15 years of scar tissues and a lot of lessons learned, we distill it to 10 items. And some of them speak to the fact that you're never out of this business. You're always managing people. And so don't treat this as a project. You're not finishing at any point. You're actually maintaining this as an ongoing cycle. So that, from a mindset, is a very good lesson learned for a lot of customers. So that means you have to have people dedicated to this that will never go away after the project completes. This is not ending. Another is to make sure you plan before you act. And this is something that a lot of companies don't do or don't do well, or they think they're doing, but they're not. And so you end up, a project ends up bringing technology, and then after the fact you find that you had already technology that did something else that was brought in for another project. And so now you have to manage, dual, platforms and things that do basically the same function. So a lot of planning ahead pays off.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great tips. Thanks. So can you tell us about some of the emerging identity and access management models?
Yes, absolutely. This is exciting now. I think that if we were to timeline, the evolution, and I would say maybe circa 2008, with the economic downfall and all the stress that came with that, Organizations have now started to look at different models, and the idea of there's this metric we call time to value. That if I have to start the clock now, the time it takes for me to get a solution has to be reduced. And for many of our experience in the traditional deployment cycle is about 12 months before organization actually gets to reap the benefit of an implementation. That's way too long.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the recent years now, the pressure is to get the results sooner and in a way that's more predictable. And so that's forcing a change, not just in the technology itself to make it easier to implement, but also in the entire delivery model, how the business processes are mapped into that technology. And what that means in many cases for us is, well, you have to come with things that are pre-built, ready to go. So you turn it on, and all you have to do is iterate and make sure that it now fits what the customer needs. But that way, you're reducing time. You're reducing the waiting time before you get the benefits. Mm-hmm. So I think the trend today in cloud technology, virtualization, and a lot of the evolution in technology altogether and maturity of identity management is really looking at cutting that time to value.
Mm-hmm.
That's new.
And are organizations embracing this idea that identity and access management in the cloud, I guess?
Yeah, more so I think now than, like I said, I think 2008 and after is sort of a turning point for this. In the past, a lot of organizations were very hesitant to outsource data, outsource these processes. They're business critical in many cases. And now, I think the pressure is, well, is it cost effective? Is it mature enough? Can the security controls assure that even if you farm it out to the cloud, can you still retain visibility? And the reality is that the models that are emerging today are able to satisfy a lot of those requirements. And so I think it's a little spotty in some verticals. I think paranoia in other regions would actually force a customer to stay with more traditional models. But in other verticals, and I'll say even healthcare as an example, the need to leap forward and really get a handle on this is pushing organizations to different models. So they're a little more receptive. I think the cloud paradigm is also teaching a lot of CIOs and CISOs out there that is okay. It's a model that needs to be embraced, that resistant is probably not the most productive way. In many cases, you already put data out in the cloud that's more sensitive than data you have internally anyway.
Right.
And so this doesn't add that much risk to the equation. It has to be done properly, but for the most part, it can be handled.
All right, Frank, thanks so much for telling us about this space.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thanks to you for watching. Have a great day.